Now in this exercise working on the sales and cost of sales, I am working from the training manual, which is saved on the web under grade 8 and 9, and it's task 8.1. However, if you don't have the training manual, and particularly this is for use for the grade 10s as a revision, please here just take note, here is the table on which I am working. So please just write this down before you get started. Right, learners, as we continue, we're going to move into a retailer. Now, everything up to now, we've dealt with a service business. A service business does a service. So you cut hair, you're a doctor, you're an accountant, you're a lawyer or something. Whereas a retailer buys goods at cost price. He adds on a profit and he sells it at a higher price, which is his selling price. And the difference between these two is then the profit that he's making. Now, you are going to find that in your exercises, you're going to be given cost prices or selling prices, and you're going to have to calculate the other figure. The principle on which we work is that the cost price, the cost of sales, is always 100%. Can't start at naught, because naught is nothing. So we've got to start somewhere. So we work with 100%. If we take an example that my profit is 50%, then it means I'm going to sell the goods for 150%. The 100 plus the 50 gives you the selling price. Now this formula, this principle, is extremely important in order to do the calculations. And it's no different to what you will do in maths as well. So let's now apply it and let's see what this means. So in the first one here, you are told that the markup is 60%, and you know the cost of sales is 280. So let's look here now. So we know that the cost price is always 100%. That's our starting point, always. The profit in this one is 60%. So our selling price, because we want to sell it for more, we're going to add up, is 160%. Now, the figure that you were given here, the 280, is the cost price, the cost of sales. So the cost price is what you bought the goods for. So you went and bought goods for 280. It's your cost price when you went to the shop and you bought those items. You now want to add on a profit, and you want to add on 60% of that. So you're going to sell it for more. You're going to sell it for 160%. So the procedure, we're given 280. It's the only money figure we're given. The 280 is the cost price. It's equal to 100%. So we divide it by 100. And we times it by what do we want. And if I want to get the selling price, I'm going to times it by 160. All right, just let's go over that. Your original cost price, the price that you paid for the goods, was 280. That becomes your cost of sales. The cost price and the cost of sales is the same thing. The cost price, what you bought it for, and then that becomes the cost of the goods that you're selling. Now, that was equal to 100%. So now we divide by 100 and we times by, we want the selling price, 160, and that gives me an answer of 448. The difference between the two over here is 168, and that will be my profit. Right, now let's go to the next one. The next one, number 2, you're given a markup of 150%. And again, you're given the cost of sales. So same story. Our cost price is always 100%, always our starting point. Our profit, this case, is 150%. Watch this now. So the selling price is equal to the cost plus the profit. It's equal to 250%. In other words, your selling price is more than double. The figure that you're given is the cost of sales. Again, cost of sales is your cost price. So that's what you're given. That's the figure you're given. So let's calculate our selling price. So I've given 1,200. That is equal to 100%. So I divide by 100. Times by, now you want the selling price. So you're going to times by 250 because the markup was 150. So you add it on to 100. And so therefore, your selling price here comes out at 3,000 Rand. As I said, you've more than doubled. And your profit is 1,800. Now if we go to number 3, you're given a markup of 75%, but this time we're given the sales figure. So we're going to try and find the cost of sales. Same story. We start exactly the same. The cost price is always 100%. The profit in the number 3 is 75%. So selling price, you add the 2 is 175. But this time you're given the selling price. You're given 1050 and you're told it is the selling price, the sales figure. So now we want to find X, the cost price. So take the figure you know, but now this is selling price. Selling price is equal to 175. So you divide by 175. You times by, you're trying to find X, which is 100. And your answer comes out there to 600 Rand. 600. And the profit, the difference between them, is 450. Now just check yourself here, please, because remember that the cost price must be smaller than the selling price if you're making a profit. So make sure that the figure that you come out here with, you trying to work out the cost price, is smaller than that. Now you do number 4 for me. Alright, so selling price will therefore be 120% because the markup is 20%. Alright, 100 plus 20. The figure you were given is 864. So 864 divided by 120 times 100, and your cost price is 720, and your profit, the difference between the two, 144. And just check, the cost price is smaller than the selling price. Now, if you look at number 5, might sound a bit complicated, but it's the same principle. You're given a markup of 40%, but this time you're told you got the gross profit. So, same thing again. I still start with the cost price of 100%. My profit is 40%. So my selling price, the two together, 140%. But now this time you're given the profit figure. This is the figure you were given. That's 960. So to calculate, we do exactly the same. You're given 960. 960 is equivalent to 40%. So you divide by 40. And you times by, and you can work out either the cost price or the selling price. It makes no difference. So let's just go to the cost. So we're going to times it by 100. And so your cost price comes out at 2,400 when you multiply here. And if you add the two up together, you will get your selling price of 3,360. You could have multiplied here by 140, and then you would have calculated the selling price, and you could have then subtracted to get the cost price, because the cost price must always be lower than the selling price if you're making a profit. Now just one thing, I know I'm saying to you these are all percentages, and then I'm saying divide by 40, and then I'm not using a percentage sign. Because it's 40% times 100%, so the percentages will cancel each other out. So don't worry about the percentage sign, don't worry about multiplying by that percentage. You're looking at the 40 and the 100. Now I want you to do number 6 for me. And so there it is, please, and I trust that you actually got those figures again. And again, as I said, although I've times by 100 here, and therefore I got the cost price. The cost price plus the profit gives me my selling price. You could have times by 190, in which case you would have got the selling price. Subtract the profit, and you got the cost price. At the end of the day, learners, it's all back to this. The cost of sales or the cost price is always 100. Your profit is going to vary, and the selling price is always the cost price plus the profit. Determine which figure you've got. So whether it's the cost price, the selling price, or the profit, determine which figure you've got, divide by its equivalent percentage, and times by what you want to know. Now this becomes a calculation that you are going to use right through to grade 12. So let's try and sort it out now.